Hello and welcome to the Voluntary Virtues Network. I'm your host for the show, Christianarchy, Corey McCall, also Corey Delandi. That's my slave name, legal name, slave name. I'm here with my special guest host, the always intellectually funny and civil Chuck the Liberty Geek. How you doing,
What's
Chuck?
up, everyone? Thanks for having me again. It's like I gravitate here for some reason.
Yeah, Chuck was kind enough to join me. All three of my co-hosts were very busy with obligations tonight. But me and Chuck are looking forward to having a good rousing debate tonight about all things voluntaryists. And one of the things we wanted to touch on tonight was the implication that statism uses with its doctrine. It's centered around this kind of exemption from morality in the sense of we as voluntarists recognize that things are inherently wrong, such as the initiation of force and coercion against a peaceful, innocent person. And from there, we can discern, well, if I can't do that against Chuck, and Chuck cannot do that against me, and you as the viewers, we can't do that to you either, and you can't do that to us, then why should we be able to have some third party arbitrator go and do that for us, or you do that for you guys? And so from there, we start to come to this general realization that if all men are created equal, and we have the same natural rights, life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, then who is it to say that somebody gets to breach that non-aggression principle against the natural rights and liberties of somebody else? And with that, we want to dive into the whole topic of the IRS. I mean, the IRS is just out of control. I think it's really funny when you look at what the IRS is. It's nothing more than a mafia-style strongman, that comes to your business and says, "Hey, this is a really nice place you got here. You should pay us to keep it." And you just kind of are like, "Who are you?" And he's like, he's got a badge. He's got a badge. I gives him some type of
Hmm.
authority.
Because badges are totally not just pieces of tin, and you know, they have magical properties.
Yeah, magical. Yeah, it's magical. It's another thing too with the idea of selective authority with exemption. Um,
Hmm.
it just becomes very irrational. I find often when we talk to statists about, hey, how come you guys want to exempt certain people in office or public duty jobs? How come you want to exempt them from the law that they're supposed to enforce? Everyone should be equal, and they tell us that we're utopian and we're the starry-eyed dreamers, but we're the ones saying no. Everyone should be held accountable the same.
Right? Like, why is that? Why is that just being starry-eyed? But it's funny. I'll tell you why badges work the way they do. It's because they give you +3 to charisma.
The charisma.
Yeah, it's the charisma, obviously. Why else would you do it, right?
Yeah,
Right.
I mean, it's actually the indoctrination. I mean, and Christians are just as guilty of it too. Through the 501c3 churches, which are often discovered more often now to teach what the state wants them to teach. Um, Christians are taught to believe in sort of this divine right of. Back then, it was the divine right of kings because you had the kings in control, and now it's the divine right of the state. There's no exemption from God's law, and that's me saying that as a Christian. And obviously, as we can both agree, there's no exemption from morality in natural law.
Mm-hmm. Uh, I think when it comes especially to the IRS, we also need to remember that, it comes down to a few simple matters of we are the people that take your money. We can take your home, we can take your business, and what gives us that authority? Well, we give ourselves the authority.
Yeah, essentially. Well, you know what's interesting is if you consider the fact that the IRS and income tax was actually never established through any type of law. It was only established through an executive order. I was actually just reading someone's article on this the other day, and it was a very interesting argument that I actually had never thought of before. Executive orders are not necessarily any type of law. So even if we were to subscribe to the notion of statism in regards to America and the constitutional republic that we have supposedly, it still wouldn't be a law in effect because it's done through an executive order. And
And
I
if you
know,
go Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, if you go farther back than that, too, the 16th Amendment in the United States Constitution, which, history don't fail me now, 1913. Um, the 16th Amendment of the Constitution says that the government has the right to levy taxes, but the 16th Amendment wasn't ratified until 1913, which also happened to coincide with uh, the creation of the Federal Reserve. So, coincidence? I mean, even if it was American statism, the government wasn't originally supposed to use the Constitution and all these sorts of things that Americans hold so highly to
Right.
collect taxes. So, I mean, that's just yeah. So, I just wanted to point it out. I thought that went
Yeah,
perfectly with what you're saying.
and going off what you just said there, Chuck, and this is us obviously entertaining still the idea of a constitutional republic.
Mhm.
The idea that they had fought for originally was the whole, there's taxation without representation. So
Mhm.
you have if you have a monopoly on force and law, which can obviously tax you whether or not you have a say, that's contrary to what they fought for. You know,
Mhm.
just because you have a vote, that doesn't mean that you're represented.
And
Represented.
let's not forget. I mean, the founding fathers aren't exactly innocent themselves. Remember, after Washington became president, there was a 40% tax on whiskey. You know,
Right?
like what? And
Yeah.
even he also broke the voluntarism. I'm pretty sure Washington had slaves. Don't quote me on that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You know what? I can imagine the founding fathers writing the Declaration of Independence and Constitution, and
Hmm.
I imagine it was something like this. You got the paper and their pen, and they're like, and we hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights.
And then they just go, "Oops."
Hey, boy, you go give me some water, boy. My throat's getting.
Give me some ink too while you're at it, boy. I'm running out. Aren't I also equal, sir? No, shut down. Shut down. Shut the fuck up. You know.
And that's another thing with early statism. You had justification because there was black people. Oh wait, no, well they don't get the rights. And then you had justification when the state wanted more land to take it from Cherokee
The
Indians.
Native Americans. Yep.
You had,
Yep.
you had the largest genocide the world has ever seen. Of course, they won't teach you that in public school. They'll teach
Oh
you that.
no.
They'll teach you
Oh
what the
no.
Holocaust was. But no, the genocide of the Native American was the largest genocide in the history of the world.
And
Um,
what else is interesting about that is when you think about this, it's like all men are created equal. It's like, whoops, we forgot. It's actually them. They just forgot all white men. But like, oops, my bad.
yeah.
But
Oh, and
like,
of course, not women as well. That's why they use the word men.
hmm but no, but in all seriousness, though, I mean, all of those things, like the whole Constitution in itself, like the way that they originally interpreted, completely went against even then against the NAP or voluntarism, whatever you want to call it, because they it's kind of hard to explain because it sounds good at first, right? But
Right.
how can they? When you have a government, right? A government's whole function when they people sleep at night by thinking that the government's going to protect them, but in order for the protection that any sort of government can provide, you have to trample on rights.
Right.
So how can you literally guarantee any and all of these rights at once that the Constitution was originally supposed to provide? It's they kind of dug themselves into a hole. It's impossible. You
Yeah.
know.
I enjoy,
So
when it comes to the topic of safety with statists, I always enjoy quoting, was it Dwight D. Eisenhower? He said, if you really want safety, go live in a prison.
mhm
It's a socialist paradise, a statist socialist paradise.
mhm.
You'll
I
have
mean,
all the free commodities that you like. You have food, you have shelter, you have security. The only thing you're lacking is freedom.
mhm. And I mean, it's kind of funny too. Like, remember, like it's way back when, before even the British were anti-socialists and anti-communist at one point. Winston Churchill quotes, you can't. A man trying to, a country trying to tax itself into prosperity is like a man stepping into a bucket and trying to lift it. And then you have Margaret Thatcher, which, oh my God, the whole fucking country hated her, but still, I mean, granted, she was basically their Bush, which, okay, fine, but still, I mean, Like they didn't hate her for that. Like God, they loved it. They loved it when she invaded the Falkland Islands down in South America. They loved that's how she got reelected. But like but when she started talking shit about socialism and when she took away free milk from the kids, um, people got a little pissed, which kind of was just like, what? Like, is free milk really that necessary to your survival? Like, at any sort of level?
That's like the whole argument. Like, remember, you had Americans that supposedly were anti-government and all the people, and they after the Boston bombing happened and Boston was locked down in martial law, there was supposedly a really awesome story that came out about the cop that brought the milk to the family. It's like
Mm-hmm.
that's government in essence. Government creates a problem, takes away your freedom, and then gives you something in return.
Which shuts you up.
Yeah, which shuts you up exactly. And
Mm-hmm.
it's like without government, who would
It's
deliver the
like,
milk?
yeah, that cop brought that family that milk, but totally disregard the fact that they're just searching your backpacks at their leisure, you know.
And that you're not
So
allowed to leave your house at the point of a gun.
I know, and like and weren't those people cheering for those people too when they
Oh
were
yeah,
like
raise
walking through the
flag.
neighborhood? Like, what the? Oh my god! It's enough to give you a heart attack if you're at risk
Well,
for it.
again, though, it brings us back around to the ludicrousy of statism and the idea in some absolute authority. Picture this. I want each and every one, whether you're a voluntarist, constitutionalist, you're a full-blown statist, communist, whatever. I want you to picture that you have worked so hard to invest into a business from the ground up. You and maybe it's a family-owned business, and your family have worked, sweat and all the sweat and blood and time you sacrificed into building this business up, and you built this business, and you might even take out business loans for it as well. Maybe you went to school and you got a degree in business, and you're paying off your loans, you're paying off, and you're finally starting to make some capital, you're starting to make some income to provide for you and your family. And as soon as things start going smoothly, picture somebody walks into your business, guy looks pretty smooth in a suit and tie, and he says to you, "Hey man, you got a good operation going here. I think you should pay us in order to keep operating." And you're thinking to yourself, well,
Why?
yeah, you're thinking, why? I don't need to pay you anything. And that's the rationale, though, that should go through your head. But it all flies out the window when he shows you a piece of paper and it says, "I'm from the government. I'm here to help."
Well, okay. It also brings up another disturbing revelation. Whether you run a business or you own a home, it's like, okay, I take out these business loans, or I take out this mortgage, right, for my house. I pay it off, but then, and then you're just like, well, I paid it off, but I still have to pay taxes on it. So it's like, do I own my own business? Do I own my own house? It's like,
Yeah. And of course, people try to argue, "Oh, well, if you have your house, but are you using the city or county water or electric?"
I don't have
Well,
a fucking choice.
I know. For one, hold on. One, you don't have a choice. You don't have a choice. But two, that's why you actually pay the bill for that. Okay, so I
Right.
have a water bill, I have a gas bill, I have an electric bill, and I pay those companies their money for using the utilities. But then I also get a property tax on top of that. Where the fuck
Hmm.
did that come from?
Yeah, and on top of that, it's like and this isn't. I don't think this applies to every state, but there are some states where it's like, okay, so you try to stop using like state-provided electricity, right? I put a solar panel on my house. Oh, I see you put a solar panel on your house. Because I'm government, you're gonna have to pay me X amount of extra dollars on top of what you already pay me. And
Yeah,
you're like, what? I'm saving you money. Literally. Well, now you're offloading, our estimate. You're completely blowing our estimates of usage
you're
out of
trying to
proportion.
escape. You're trying to escape paying us money, slave. That's what it equates to.
It is. And it's like, what? And it's
There's
like
a
wow.
perfect example. Remember that lady, the lady down in Florida? She was living,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah,
she was
she had
living
the
down in
whole
the
off the grid
countryside.
house. Yeah,
Yeah,
she got the whole off the grid house and the cops were like, nope, you can't live here. We completely condemn the whole thing.
yep, exactly. And that's the problem you're facing with absolute power. Now, I want to use this time to actually transition into the topic of there is I might get shot from both sides for this, but there is overlap when it comes to voluntarists and minarchists in the sense of justice, dispute resolution, for violation of the NAP. I think most people would actually agree once I illustrate where I'm coming from. So, minarchists, supposedly they believe in the government in the sense of it's only there to protect those from being injurious to others, or to restore restitution for damages done for being injurious to another party. And I think voluntarists would agree that violation of the non-aggression principle and harming someone or damaging their property would also warrant some type of restitution as well. And that's where dispute resolution organizations come into effect. So I would say that there is overlap. I would say that voluntarists are, in a sense, Americanists, without obviously the absolute belief in a monopoly on force and law.
That's interesting.
The thing with minarchists, as far as constitutionalists go, they believe their problem is they believe in absolute authority. Where voluntarists, we say no, everyone has equal authority in regards to we're all equal, we have the same rights. You don't have a right to violate my liberties. I don't have a right to violate yours. If you do that, I have just as much a right to seek restitution as if I did that to you.
And the other problem with minarchy is, the other problem is like, okay, you say you have a constitution, right? What do you define as hurting other people? Like, sure, there's a really obvious physical harm, but, like, now do we go like, well, I offended someone, does that harm them? Or like, well,
Of course not.
It's like, but, with some people, it is. It's like, you offend them, and it's like suddenly they're having seizures.
Well, that's exactly the problem with certain minarchists is they'll actually take what voluntarists agree on them with, and they'll take what the inch that we agree with, that small overlap, and they'll try to go that mile. And that's the issue there, is because, listen, relating back to where Jesus talked about turning the other cheek, I think this is exactly what he talked about with things that aren't that bad, such as people hurling insults, or trying to egg you on into a fight or some nonsensical bullshit. You as an adult can turn the other cheek, meaning you can walk away from that. You don't have to violently resist somebody that's obviously coming from a place of malice. What do you think?
I think you're right. It's like, you say, well, yeah, I guess that's someone says like, well, you shouldn't murder someone, and as a voluntarist you go, look, like, I guess that's pretty bad, and they're like, see, that's why we need some sort of absolute, authority to protect people from being murdered. But it's like, but I could do that myself.
Right?
I can make a finger pistol.
Yeah, I think here's the cool thing. If you remember, I don't know if you saw the article not too long ago. And what I'll do is I'll actually post this on the page afterwards. I'll even tag you in it, and we can share it around. But in regards to the minarchists, wondering how we can have security, protection, and that stuff in a voluntary society, I think a lot of minarchists who are constitutionalists will agree with me that Detroit is the poster child for a state-run city if there ever was one.
Hey, remember who lives in Detroit?
Exactly.
It's like, but like, okay, so let me tell you a good story then.
Here, let
Recently,
me finish this right, Chuck. I was gonna elaborate on an example of protection and security in a voluntary society.
Oh, you mean there is none here? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. So there's actually the average response time right now in Detroit. I don't know if you know this, but the average response time for cops to assist on a call, the waiting time is an hour. That's the average time. Now, a private security company has taken it upon themselves to actually help out the community by not only providing self-defense courses in firearms handling, defensive weapon use, but they also provide reasonable and affordable security. Whether you're trying to go to your job, what they do is they provide, you get us for 10 minutes, okay, that's $10. And then I'm sure there's also like a small service fee on top of that. But they bring you to your work. Say you work in a slummy area, they escort you to your work. They do a perimeter check. They walk into your building and say, okay, well, we'll see you after work. And that's how they help out people, And if you don't,
isn't that genius? It's literally fucking, because now as a private company, they can amass these resources to actually do that. You ask a cop to escort you to work in Detroit, you can you get your ass laughed at,
They
literally.
do. They laugh at you. They think you're the well. The macho man cop tough guy thing comes out, and I can say this as somebody who, I went to school for criminal justice, and I had an internship, and I saw so many macho man bullshit from cops in my area. It was ridiculous. But they'll call you, oh, you pussy, or they'll just call you names, But
Yeah,
here's
no,
the
no, no, but it's like, here's another thing. Here's another thing that statistics don't report on, right? There are actually certain neighborhoods in Detroit where the cops, like, nobody will tell you this, but they just won't respond at all at night. They literally just will not respond at all. See you in the morning,
well,
Like,
and it's
and I'm not even making this up. I mean,
Yeah, well, it's important to note that there was also several court cases. I'll see if I can pull them up here in my notes real quick. Here, I got them right here. There were several court cases upheld that police do not have any obligation to protect people.
nope,
Um,
just enforce the law.
so one of them is, it is not the duty of the police to protect you. Their job is to protect the corporation and arrest code breakers. That's SAT v. Tallahassee, Rief versus City of Philadelphia, and Lynch v. North Carolina Department of Justice. And then there's also the rights of the individuals are restricted only to the extent that they have been voluntarily surrendered by citizenship to agencies of the government. City of Dallas v. Mitchell, and there's several other cases here I have that
Hmm.
just
And
prove,
some of those even, I believe, made it to the Supreme Court, didn't they?
yeah, absolutely. Here, I'll see if I can find that one in my notes real quick. Da, da, da.
But on Detroit and IRS, I think you're gonna like this story. So recently, we had some flooding here. We had I don't know if you heard about it where you live, but here we had a lot of rain. Like Detroit got 4.5 inches of rain, and Southfield got like 6.5 inches of rain, right? And ironically, here in Detroit, like that much snow would just be a nuisance, but that much rain is ridiculous. And the most of the cops were doing, like, they steal our money to supposedly protect us anyways, right? That the most that they were just doing was they were just saying on the radio, "Don't go on the freeways if you can help it," instead of, you know, we pay you anyways. You force us to pay you anyways. Why aren't you sending someone out there to, I don't know, do your job and direct traffic? Like, hey, this road's closed because it's fucking flooded. Like, okay, I have a family member who works in Detroit, right? They could not get home at night. They had to duck out at a friend's house in Warren, which Warren is a city away, literally just a city away. And it took them 3 hours to just get to Warren, to get one city away. And,
Jesus, dude, that's insane.
and it took them another like 2 or 3 hours to get home from that. And that was after the rain died down. So someone who left work at about 7:30 didn't get home on what's normally about an hour drive until like 12:30.
I don't understand that at
And,
all.
and I was told that there were no cops out there. There were no like nobody was putting out anything that said road closed or anything like that. There were no signs. They have signs on the freeway that the government has control of. Nothing said anything about flooded roads or anything like that. I mean, it was so chaotic out there. People were going the wrong way on the fucking freeway because there was nowhere else to go. And you forced us to pay you anyways. Why the fuck aren't you out there doing anything?
Well, here, and this is a
Detroit.
perfect example. This is a perfect example of a time when, and I think constitutional minarchists will agree with us when a government, any type of government entity, whether it be in a voluntary society or a minarchist constitutional society, if they are literally neglecting their duty,
We could have fired him.
there becomes a time where you have to say enough is enough. And
Yeah.
there's actually some interesting scripture. Oh, Chuck, I don't know if you know, but I actually started writing a book this last week.
Oh,
Yeah, it's I'm not sure when we'll be finished with it, but my lady Danny Lawson, the rebel outlaw lady, she's going to be helping co-author it, but it's titled "The Christian Outlaw: Moral Duty to Disobey Satanic Government." Um, and but I've been collecting different notes of scriptures and stuff to illustrate my point. There's all different things we talked about before, and one of the things I like to talk about is that if here's the thing. Here's the problem with Romans 13. If we could talk about that for just one moment.
sure.
The thing that it starts out saying let every man be subject to the higher powers, that means every man. That means every single man. That does not exempt people who are an elected office official or some type of authority. Okay? So that means everyone has the equal opportunity to hold each other accountable. That's the first thing that I would note on that. So the other part of that is God doesn't put people into power through having them do ungodly things. If they violated God's commandment to come to power, then they cannot have been put there by God.
Because that
That's
would kind of be ironic.
it is. It is. It's that's the total opposite of what God says. Um, and in Luke chapter 4, verses 1 through 8, we learn that Satan puts people in power of government, for they give glory to him. Because when he takes Jesus up on the mountain and he's tempting Jesus, he says, "If you kneel to me, then I will give you all the power of these kingdoms you see here." Because he showed him all the kingdoms of the world. And he said, "For all of them give glory to me." Well, if all the governments and kingdoms of the world give glory to him because they rely on doing evil and immoral acts, then why would we, as people of moral fortitude, submit to that?
I mean, I'm not even Christian, and that completely makes sense to me. It's just like, it's like, okay, so you're Satan, um, and you put people in power, and Satan is stereotypically, depicted as a not so good thing.
Yeah.
So
Well,
it's like even yeah, it's yeah. So, but it's ridiculous. I mean, I don't remember. Do you remember when the History Channel put out that Bible special where they did like a TV show about the Bible? You remember that?
yeah, I
Like,
don't approve. I don't approve of that stuff at
yeah,
all.
I was just about to ask. Like, was that accurate? Like at all?
The problem is the same people that made that series, they made the and this is just where I'm coming from as a Christian. The same people that made that series, they made the Son of God movie. Now, there's some good messages that can be taken away from the Son of God movie. What I don't approve of, though, is the fact that one, a lot of these people are not Christians. They don't proclaim to be Christian. The other thing is, here's a perfectly good example of how Hollywood, and Hollywood is a subsidized state entity, you know, um,
Hmm.
but they'll water down and pervert the teachings of Jesus, and they also use the face of Jesus. Okay, the guy that portrayed Jesus was known for doing sexual soap operas. Like he was a very lustful figure, and people knew it. Like people were calling him "Sexy Jesus." There was like a hashtag "Sexy Jesus" thing going around.
I know
There's
I shouldn't
literally,
laugh at that because I might
I
have.
know, right? I mean,
That's
it,
funny
but
to me.
yeah, it's
No,
funny because
what's funny is if you look, I've been told I look like Jesus because I have the long hair and the beard, but like I know, right? Like then I wonder, could I be sexy Jesus? Like probably not. I'm not good looking, but that
and
is
it's
pretty
something
that
you
is
can
pretty
laugh at.
ironic. And I mean, I've always been a conspiracy theorist. So like when you put two and two together like that to me, that kind of says, you know,
Well, here, conspiracy theorists are simply those that use common sense and rationale. Because,
right.
but I was talking to someone the other day, actually a couple people, on my buddy's thread, and he tagged me because he was talking. They were all talking about JFK and the conspiracies revolving around him, and
Mhm.
he's like, well, he goes, Corey, get in on this discussion. And there were some people that were talking there that were very, very against conspiracy theorists, and all I said to them was, look, conspiracy theorists just simply recognize Occam's razor. What is naturally the most probable answer? Because it's not that it's not that far fetched to believe that people who crave and lust for power and money would conspire to do evil things to gain more
Mhm.
power and money.
Mhm.
It's not
Like,
that far fetched at all.
and if I can get into that even farther, I mean, days before he was killed, JFK was on record saying that there is something going on in this country, and I'm going to tell you about it. And then right when he was about to tell you about it, oops, we let our president die. Like, oops. Like,
Yeah.
oops, sorry about that, Mrs.
at,
Kennedy.
at some point when you present all the different conspiracies to people and they say that every single one of them is just a coincidence, that's when you start to go, dude, are you sure you have common sense? Because I'm just saying, look at this one, look at this one, look at this one,
Yeah,
look
like
at this one,
there's
and
so
they
many
and they dismiss
coincidences. Like a coincidence, sure. One or two things, like sure, like Abraham Lincoln's killer and oh, what's that coincidence between Abraham Lincoln's killer and there's a whole bunch of them. Like there was a
And
list.
JFK.
Yeah, you remember what I'm talking about? Like they had so many things that were like coincidences. Like that's a coincidence, but like but then when you look at the JFK case, like there's so much evidence for that, and he literally said himself, "I'm going to expose something." And then he dies right before he exposes it. That doesn't put any warning bells in someone's head, like
Yeah,
ding, 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 ding. Like, what are you gonna?
I think there's something to be said too for regarding government for what it is, which is nothing
Mhm.
more than a mafia. Um, think about how the mafia treats people that are a threat to its power. What does it do? It takes them out. Okay,
Well, I
we
mean,
know that. We've also,
mhm. And we've known in the past that our government, through the CIA and other sorts of organizations, they've worked with the mafia before. You know,
exactly. That
like
was a conspiracy. That was a conspiracy. Was proven to be true.
yeah. I mean, like the whole, I believe it was, oh, what was it? The Cuba crisis. I'm pretty sure the CIA and Jimmy Hoffa, like remember that? Like Jimmy Hoffa was working with the CIA at some point when it came to like the Cuba crisis. So, and then he just happened to never be discovered. Like, really,
Yeah.
really, like, yeah, no. Um, but you know what else is interesting is that um, going back on conspiracies is like I had one person say that they thought that JFK's wife was in on it. Because like if you look at her reaction compared to how like a normal wife when check on her husband, right? Was the reason he told me like a normal wife would be like, "Oh my god, my husband was just fucking shot. I should be a little bit more freaked out and checking to see if he's okay." And instead she just jumped right out of the fucking car like, "Fuck that
Wait,
shit." like uh, uh but I would argue that, you know, it wasn't I don't think JFK was going to expose something because he was just a really good guy. I always was under the assumption that he was going to expose something because they weren't playing on his. They weren't giving him enough. That would be my thing.
well,
Like,
and you know what? Everyone's welcome to that opinion. I think what everyone can agree on is,
mhm,
regardless of whether JFK was the most noble or not, he also threatened the power of the Federal Reserve by trying to go
mhm,
back to the silver-backed
yep.
currency, which would take power away from the Federal Reserve note. Here we are
Fun
going off on
fact.
here we are going off on conspiracy.
Yeah, no, but fun fact. Since we're on this conspiracy thing, anyways, um, there were when the Titanic sank, there were several key people who were against the formation of the Federal Reserve, and shortly after the Titanic sank was when the Federal Reserve was established because those people died. So there's theories about that the Titanic might not have actually hit an iceberg.
The iceberg works for the warbirds and the
Yeah.
Rockefellers.
But no, there was actually like a theory like that the Titanic was actually bombed and that's why it went down because those people happened to be on it. So true or not, I don't know. I legitimately can't tell you that one, but that's just one that makes me think a lot. So,
Yeah,
but
there's
again, it all goes back to I would bet you a million fucking bucks that if it was an inside job, I would bet you that it was a government sponsored inside job because look how much power the government has gained off the Federal Reserve, and you could also argue that the Federal Reserve pretty much owns the government, but
right. Well, they do.
because yeah, but because of the federalization formation, the government just got so much more powerful because they could just now someone could keep printing the money to you know to beef up their militaries and stuff like that.
And that's the
So
problem.
that's
Because
why I would argue that if the Titanic was an inside job, it was a government inside job.
right, exactly. It was interesting. Talking about the Federal Reserve. Have you ever talked to like these common law free man people before? Well, I
Yeah,
mean, what's your take on the whole common law free man straw man thing?
I mean, in what sense? I mean, as a
I
person,
mean,
as a voluntarist,
I
as
mean, because I mean, a lot of these guys they try to make videos or post things. I had a couple friends actually tried to say, oh, you can redeem your Federal Reserve notes for legal backed currency, but they would follow with, oh, if you don't know what you're doing, you get your ass thrown in jail. But they would never actually do it themselves. They would just
right.
always they would elaborate that it's possible. So I always called bullshit on it, even though I still was genuinely seeking answers from these people. They just could never provide me any evidence that it actually
Well, I
worked.
mean, it's like, remember when, they didn't want to audit their own, when the United States government didn't want to audit its own gold supply? Like, yeah, it's like, it's allegedly your goal, right? And it's like, so why don't you want to make sure it's still there? Unless you know it's gone!
Well,
Right?
the one guy, he argued based on it's all based on contract law and common law and all. But it's so there's so much bureaucratic red tape involved. There's literally no possible way you can know it all without getting thrown in jail.
It,
Um,
it's, you,
and
you, you'd have to steal some documents. And I'm not saying you should, because I'm not going to be responsible for you doing something stupid, like trying to steal something from the government and getting your ass.
you in general.
Yeah, but like you would have to, because there's no way, absolutely no way, that they would tell the truth and that we would know the truth on that. I'm pretty sure if the government, and I'm saying this as a anarchist voluntarist, if the government told the people the truth completely, we'd all be anarchists, or
There'd be
everyone would be an
riots. There would
anarchist.
be riots.
Yeah, everyone would be an anarchist.
And
You know,
here's the thing. Here's the thing that these guys also argue. These guys argue that by using certain documentation, such as like a state ID, your birth certificate, social security number, and then the Federal Reserve note, they argue that by you using them, that is your social contract, and you consent to it.
but it's not, because what? There's no alternatives I'm allowed. Like, I have Bitcoin, but it's hard. It's hard to prop up Bitcoin as an alternative right now
The
because
thing that they forget,
no
the thing they
infants.
forget is that those things are done under duress. There's no other. And the argument I make simply is, if a slave that's on a plantation literally has to drink water, and because he drinks the water that the slave master provides to him, does that mean he consents to the relationship? No, it does not. And,
It means he needs to fucking live or he's gonna die.
yeah, and here's the thing: using these things, that does not imply consent to absolutely be governed with absolute impunity. And the other problem is whether or not I use the Federal Reserve note, how it comes to existence, and whether it's printed off or whatever. It does not change the fact that, look, somebody at some point was owning it. It was given out and owned. Somebody owned it, whether it was printed off as with interest attached to it. I don't give a fuck. That's their problem. That's the bank problem who printed it off. I worked. I worked for it, and I earned the fruits of my labor. If I get paid all my earnings in cash under the table, guess what? I'm not paying a fucking cent.
And it's ridiculous because then they'll lock you up when they find out about it. Like, well, you did some work, and even some of the small things, like, okay, like, for example, I don't know how true this is in the United States, but I heard someone in Canada say this, so I'll use this example. In Canada, let's say we do a barter exchange. Like, let's say you fix plumber Corey fixes my sink in exchange for me.
Somebody order a really hairy plumber.
Yeah. Wait, no. Let's say that plumber Corey fixes my sink.
Not real hairy for the record. I'm actually the opposite.
Yeah. And in exchange, I fixed your computer for you, right?
Right.
In Canada, you're supposed to report that so it can be taxed. Like, what? There wasn't even exchange of money. Why am I supposed to report this? How can you tax that? Like, but that's just an example of like they stranglehold you so much for like, and you know what? Like, let's talk about strangleholds and and how scary the government can be because remember when Obama came out and literally said we tortured some folks and nobody cared. Nobody. Like, does that not fucking scare you at all? Like, we tortured some folks, like, really? Like, and he said it too in such like a casual way, like, we tortured some folks.
And
we tortured some folks, Corey. Yep. We did. Yeah.
Yep.
like what? Like who? Why?
Wait. What you're forgetting is that no point in time the Obama administration know what the Obama administration
was doing, right? So, excuse me. But, oh yeah, you too. But, oh my god. Don't people know I'm doing a show right now? Leave me alone.
But
Sorry,
that's another thing. That's another thing I wanted to touch on is the right to be left alone. Like, you know what? Essentially, I think that's what most libertarians and voluntarists, uh, one of their, as far as their own endeavors for like their self. Not to say
hmm
that, not to say, I'm not going to say libertarians and voluntarists are selfish or altruistic, because I think it's mixed. It's both. It comes from a place of both, Like
of
I would desire,
course.
I would desire to keep the fruits of my labor because one, I've worked for them. Two, I don't want to fund anything that I think is immoral or questionable. Um,
hmm
now, but the
But
right to be left alone. It's just one of those things. It's like imagine just somebody coming to your place where you live, your place of employment, and your business is going over and over. It's just like bugging you, and eventually they're pulling a gun on you. It's just like,
mhm,
dude, get the fuck out of here! I'm just gonna fucking pull out a gun on you. Like,
mhm. Like it's funny because you talk about the right to be left alone as a voluntarist or an anarchist, and then everyone just assumes that it's just because you're an isolationist. And it's like
no,
I'm not an
no.
isolationist. Like the whole point of capitalism is cooperation between
But
consenting
let's say,
entities,
oh my
right?
god.
But it's like there's a right to be left alone in your personal. You can still be left alone in your personal life and not be an isolationist, right? Like maybe.
Yeah. Here's the thing. Mo- most most Christians and voluntarists recognize the need for a society to be around people because there's jobs to be made, there's capital to be made, there's things to be done. It's good to be around
Yeah,
people.
you can help me build my house. I can help you build your house. But what's not cool is like, you coming up to me, pointing a gun at me, and say, "You bitch," build my house for me. Like that is just not cool. And that
Yeah.
is basically what the government's doing by,
Well,
especially the IRS, which is doing by charging you these taxes, these income taxes, and any kind of taxes, really. Like,
Basquiat was the one that made a really good argument for that. He said that anytime that we voluntarists reject the state doing anything by force, that we reject it being done at all. But it's not something being done that we reject. It's you using force and violence to make people do it. That's the initiation of that force and violence to get something done. The ends don't justify the means. That's what we're saying. You can't just go out willy nilly and
mhm.
well, I want something, so I get to go fucking point a gun
Bang,
at
bang, bang, bang,
somebody.
bang, 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 bang. You know, like, oh, I don't like that kid. I'm just gonna shoot him 6 times and pull out my police badge.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. And actually one of the for the book that we're writing. That's one of the things we're actually going to be covering. We're going to devote an entire chapter to how a monopoly on governance, as we have it, known today, uh, unequivocally results in corruption and tyranny because of
hmm
man's fallible nature. As Basquiat said, if the natural tendencies of mankind are so ill that he is unfit to be free enough to govern himself, how is it that these same people can vote for more people to govern
to
these
govern
people?
them. Yeah, it's
You
like
know,
I always believe what brings me a voluntarist is the notion that nobody knows how to rule me better than me. So why can you rule me? It's like
well,
I don't think I can put it any simpler than that. I'm the only one that knows how to run myself as well as I do. There's nobody. You don't know how to run me. I could be a fucking weirdo, and I'm the only one that knows how to deal with me being a fucking
we
weirdo.
are
Like,
weirdos.
I guess we're all weirdos according to society, but it's as simple as that. It's you, I know me. There's absolutely no reason why I should be ruling you and you should be ruling me. Well,
Exactly.
while rhyming.
And you know what's funny is when you actually get down to the nitty gritty and talk about people with these issues, that statism is based off of the initiation of force and violence and coercion. They feel perfectly fine having somebody else do it, but they themselves would not do it because they would
Because
feel
they're
bad about
scared, because they were okay. Here I go, but it's like they're willing to have someone else do it for them because they're too scared to do it themselves. And I'm not saying that just because even if they weren't too scared to do it themselves that it'd be all right, but that's how they can justify having a government is, well, I don't want to get my hands dirty, so I'll just let these people get their hands dirty for me, and maybe I'll give up a few things in exchange for that. And it's like, no,
it. Well,
no.
it's as simple as this, and this is me coming from my Christian standpoint, obviously. Christians, again, are being taught to believe that the government can violate the laws of God, the commandments, the teachings of Christ. But here's the thing: as soon as somebody does that, it's not of
Yeah.
God. So this is what I would say: as soon as a government is acting in a way that is contrary to what Christ would do, it's not of God,
And
and
on top of
therefore,
that, no. On top of that, right? There are several government buildings with the Ten Commandments outside of them, and if a government violates any of those Ten Commandments, it's okay. But if
yeah,
you or
it's
I were going to violate any of those Ten Commandments, well,
yeah.
holy shit!
Thou
Stop the
shalt not
presses.
murder. Thou shalt not murder. Thou shalt not steal or covet thy neighbor's goods unless government says it's cool.
Yeah, unless the government says we want to do that. But like, it's true. It's like, I would put it as this. Like, there was a great Facebook post I saw, which is ironic, but I would say there was a post that said, what did it say? If you behaved the way your government behaved, you'd be arrested. And it's
Yeah,
true.
that's the thing. That's the thing. That's the thing. What's all the statism is based on double speak.
Mm-hmm.
Legal. It's legal for me, but not for thee.
Mm-hmm. Haha. But it's also it's just so, and kind of even from a non-Christian perspective, it's just scary. It's like people are okay. And here's the other interesting thing: is like even statists a lot of statists can see through the doublespeak, and yet for some reason they're still okay with it. Like you can see this happening. I can tell the wheels are turning in your head. So why are you still okay with this? Like, did I miss something? You know,
Well,
did
the
I?
the other thing with status is more than likely, chances are that if you believe in government in the sense that most people believe in it today, chances are that when you vote, you don't vote with the intent for yourself to be ruled and for your own freedom to be taken away. What's
Yeah, you're
actually
voting to take away someone else's freedom.
and
Generally,
and that's the problem. That's the
like,
problem.
okay, so the Greeks. Okay, this is a really good example, right? The Greeks, they invent democracy allegedly, right? And then they go and kill Socrates. Yeah, Socrates. Like, oops, like fucking oops, like, yeah, that's not a big fucking deal or anything. We just all got together and voted to kill this random ass dude because we didn't like him. So, yeah, oops.
Democracy is the system that chose Barbarous over Jesus.
Mm. And, the democracy, and on top of that, even from a non religious perspective, is just if more than one person doesn't like you, if the majority does not like you, too fucking bad. You know?
And
That's
and,
what it comes down to, is if the majority
and,
doesn't like you, too fucking bad.
and you know what? That's a really good point that I'm going to be making too in my
Better
book.
write it down now.
No, no, yeah, I have it written down here in my notes. I was, this is what I had here. It says if one is wrong, if an action is wrong, the other is wrong for you to do it. So okay, for instance, God does not ordain actions of one against another. So is it right for one government that is stronger than another to overpower it? No, it's not. Of course not. Well,
No.
then is it? And the same applies to individuals. Same applies to individuals because it's all based on the idea that might makes right, and that's not based on morality at all. Because
It's
if
not even really. It's not even like if you get down to the nitty gritty. It's like I'm an anarcho-capitalist, right? You probably are too. It's like when you get down to the nitty gritty, might does not necessarily make profit either. Like maybe in the short term,
yeah, it's
absolutely in the short term, but in the long term, you fucking might all the money out of those people. Well, now they have no more might. They have no more money to fucking give it to you because you already took it out of all of them.
right.
So
Well,
now
that's
you have
that's
to
what,
spend money to set up another operation to go, bully some other people. It's better, even in a business sense, it is literally just better to cooperate with someone because then they'll want to come
exactly.
back to
That's
you.
exactly what I was telling an anarcho-communist just earlier. God, those people frustrate me. But I was saying
It's like
simply this.
it's like you're so close. You're just so close.
But I was simply saying to him, I was like, if I invest in time and effort and money and building a business to provide employment from someone, then you and I can decide what we think is best for both of us as far as you getting something out of it, me getting something out of it. That's what employment is. That's a
Hmm.
contract that we both agree upon. And that's voluntary exchange, and it doesn't take place unless both parties agree.
Exactly.
That's in line with morality, with natural law, with God's law. And the other thing is, as an employer, if I am too stingy with the wages that I will allow, I'm not going to have enough people that are willing to work with me. And as an
Because
employee, and as an
someone else is going to be like, hey, I'll pay a couple extra bucks if you help me do the exact same thing and put out my competitor, you
right,
know.
and the other thing is with that, as an employee, if you are demanding too high of a wage, you'll be out of work where no employer will want to employ you. So somewhere right in the middle, I mean, that's what free market is at work. It's just
And
basically that.
here's the funny thing: the same. Okay, you can actually take that exact same concept and apply it to communism, right? So, like, let's say there's a society with no money, right? You start demanding two extra loaves of bread for the same work that someone else is doing for one loaf of bread. Like nobody's gonna want you in their little communist community because you're just being a little bitch. It literally no, it literally works the same way in communism. They
I'll
just
say
don't
this to
realize
all the
it.
anarcho-communists out there as a Christian and voluntarist. Let he who is without capitalism cast the first smartphone.
Mm. I'll just throw my note 3 at you. But and I'll say it again as as like a something theist. I don't know what theist, anarcho-capitalist. You're so fucking close. All you just have to do is just look at the little bit more reason. You understand that government is bad, right? But you don't. What baffles me is you're like, okay, let's take away this central power and put it to this central power, which is
Yeah.
supposedly a little bit
We
better.
need government to stop oppressing us so that we can oppress people more
It's
easily.
yeah, smash those buildings, you know.
So
But
the anarcho-communist is typically known as the one that says "fuck the police," except the ones
yeah,
that enforce minimum wage.
yeah. Oh my god, minimum fucking wage. But it is literally just like, why? You know, I mean, at least okay, anarcho-syndicalism is also another thing that's like I've kind of heard about recently, and it's kind of like, okay, if we all work together, we own it, and we don't have a boss. Well, it's like, well, then who's managing? Who's fucking managing and directing the whole fucking operation? Because you can't just have like a million workers doing their own fucking thing and have our project done, right?
Machines will do it.
Yeah, and oh my god, let's not even talk about the singularity. That's holy shit, that'll be fun when that happens. But at the end of the day, I think the problem we have right now is, well, we have a couple of problems. I think we've kind of talked about them really well, but we have anarcho-communists who are really close. They don't quite see the right light. They see a light, and it's similar to our light, but it's a slightly different shade. It's a slightly different color light. But but then you have, but then you also understand sometimes where they come from when you have police beating up on people randomly or not doing these jobs that they steal our money to do anyways, and then the IRS bullying us to give us money to keep our businesses and homes, and it's like, when does it end? It's like, when will there ever be a voice of reason? And my
We are
answer,
the voice of reason.
we
You,
are,
you and
but
I, and
let me rephrase. Will there ever be a voice of reason that can drown out the other voices? Because there's so many other voices. You know.
I would say that we're actually really gaining some momentum here.
Mhm.
I see a big shift. Maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm being too optimistic. Maybe you can call me naive. But as a voluntarist and a Christian, I'm taught to be at least hopeful in the sense that maybe I can make a positive impact on some people.
I would argue that we could be getting there because look at people like Elon Musk, right? And his colonize. I believe he's the one that's making a colonization effort for Mars, right? So Mars has no government on it yet. So there is a chance
Yeah,
that we can get to Mars. Yeah, but there is a chance that we can get to Mars. We can keep a government off of it after we terraform it, and we can finally finally do our anarcho-capitalist society on Mars. How fucking sweet would that be? Like,
Yeah, I mean, dude, even if it doesn't happen on Mars, if we can make smaller communities like the Blue
I
Ridge
think, yeah,
Liberty.
I honestly think like and this is gonna sound really weird, but I think like and this is gonna sound really bizarre, but the closer we get to space travel, I honestly 100% believe the closer we get to somewhere out there having an anarcho-capitalist society, because here we're really screwed up, but out there it's a fresh start. So
Yeah, the
that's
only
my
thing is
that's my
the
weird,
problem
yeah,
with that is you have government has a monopoly on space
space
travel.
travel, yeah. But that's my optimistic look, as we start finding more habitable worlds to start dumping people on, that hopefully there'll be enough voluntarists on one of those ships to a different planet, and boom.
Yeah, as voluntarists and, especially myself as a Christian, some of the things given, if you guys have ever tuned into a voluntarist show before or research
Like any of them
voluntarism,
on this network.
we basically are saying that there is a set morality in the sense of, right and wrong. We know what right and wrong is. You can't initiate forced violence against people. And, if we believe in free will, and we believe in voluntary exchanges and individuality and goodness and just goodness, noble, just goodness. But the thing with government and statism is it completely takes away from all that. It claims infallibility from morality. It claims there is no individuality. It claims that it is God. It claims that there is no, that it trumps all. And as a Christian, I just want to say that the state is competing against God because it wants to be God. It wants to run your life. It wants to say what is right or wrong. And I actually just exposed that the other day. I put a video up. You can check it out if you want, Chuck. But I was reading my King James Study Bible, and
Hmm.
in the footnote, whoever wrote the footnote was either really misled and indoctrinated by the state and the 501c3 churches, or they were of the government themselves. It says right in Romans 13. I wanted to read what the footnote said about Romans 13, and they said the state determines what is right or wrong. And I was like, that's absolutely false.
What?
Yeah, yeah, dude, it's scary. People actually think that.
Like, okay, so the state determines what's right or wrong. So
So God's out of the
all
picture.
those other commandments we wrote in this fucking book that allegedly came from God, right? They don't fucking matter at all.
Yeah, you're not
Like,
following Christ. You're following the state now.
it's like, okay. Like, wow. Wow. You gotta send me a link to that after this show.
Oh yeah, I'll go ahead and I'll tag you on it. But
But,
I just want to thank you for calling on the show tonight, and
oh,
just having a
absolutely.
kind of a jubilee of topics tonight.
No, it was a blast, and it basically reminded me of my own show. It was with a little bit more of a Christian twist to it, so it wasn't that bad. But no, for real. It was a blast. I got to rant, and I feel better now.
I always enjoy your virtual company and discussion, Chuck. So
Absolutely, thank you, man.
we always come closer to
Hmm.
that we help each other understand those universal truths and spread the message of a voluntary society with liberty and justice.
So, any last words for them?
I would say if you guys want to keep updated on the book that we're working on, the Christian Outlaw Moral Duty to Disobey Satanic Government, go ahead and friend me, Corey McCall on Facebook. If you look at our page, Christianarchy, all one word. Feel free to send Chuck a friend request too. Chuck does a lot of good postings. Chuck's a really great guy to talk to, and if you have questions, you can always ask him too. And we'll see you next time on the Voluntary Virtues Network.
See you later, guys.